Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are now live.
Hello. 1 second.
So Commissioner Petzner is the vice chair, and he will be hosting this meeting today.
Very good. Welcome to the June 17th Planning Commission meeting. We'll start with roll call.
Commissioner Dennison, Vice Chair Pevsner,
Here.
Commissioners Dallas,
Here.
Hutt,
Here.
and Spears.
Present.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. So next we have the approval of the agenda. Anybody want to make some?
Also move.
Okay.
Second.
Well, great. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Go. Great. Next up, let's see. Oh, council liaison report.
Actually, approval of the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Approval of the minutes. You're right. Sorry. I was not here at the January 3rd, so I guess we have a quorum for the rest, but go ahead, guys. I mean, June 3rd.
I have one minor correction on page 6 of the staff packet, line 69 through 70, where I said that the negative declaration was overkill. I think it still was necessary though, because it's required by law. So I just like to change the words "and while" to comma although, and then put a period after cautious and delete the rest of the sentence. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any other corrections.
I'll move the minutes be approved as corrected.
Second.
So moved in second. I have to abstain. Go ahead. Those in favor?
Aye.
Got it. And against? I see none. Moving on. Now, council liaison report. Mr. Parkhurst.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I have to admit, I haven't looked at the agenda for the city council, in part because I haven't been able to download it, the pleasures of internet. But the one thing I did want to talk about, and we can do it, Vice Chair Dennis, Vice Chair Pevsner, later in the agenda, but I wanted to give some thoughts on the youth commissioner appointments. So would you prefer me to do it now or do it in advance of that discussion item? And City Attorney and Director Gonzalez, let me know if there's a process reason why I need to do it in any position at any point.
Yeah, unless there's any of that input, I'd say we could save it for the discussion item.
If
It's at your discretion, Vice Chair.
What? I'm sorry?
It's at your discretion.
Okay, then let's just save it for the discussion. It seems like it's more apropos anyway.
That makes sense. I'd love to be able just to frame my thoughts kicking off of where I am from the council perspective on it to help inform the dialogue, if that's okay.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Well, at this point, then we move to community input. This is a time for someone to address the Planning Commission on an item that's not on the agenda. We welcome your input. If anybody's standing by to do so, we have the meeting number and phone number. So we'll give you 3 minutes to and wait for somebody to either show up, or if they're ready in the wings, let us know. This is so strange. I feel like we should have some mood music or something to cue the whole era this whole time, because we're waiting for what may not occur. One minute left. Okay, well, while we're waiting for the clock to tick down, I'll just announce the next item will be the public hearing for General Plan Amendment 2101 and Zone Change 2101 in 5, 4,
You did not get any requests for public comment at this time.
very good. All right, moving on to the first Planning Commission public hearing item. I guess we have some kind of presentation, Vince?
Yes, this is a public hearing. We've discussed this on 2 prior occasions as discussion items before the Planning Commission. And Joshua Wolf, who is our associate planner, will be giving you a brief PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners. Give me a moment to set things up here. Tonight, I will be presenting the public hearing for land use and zoning map consistency updates. This is for General Plan Amendment 2101 and Zone Change 2101. This is just a kind of recap of everything we've gone over in the last 2 discussions. So the general plan application, general plan amendment, as required for the proposed changes to the land use map to be changed as directed by City Council during a 2015 general plan update prior to its final adoption. And the zone change is required for the proposed changes to the zoning map to resolve inconsistencies between land use designation and zoning designation. Why is it necessary? To achieve consistency with the general plan and as required by state law. In summary of our background before our discussions, there was changes to 1935 Stonehouse Road, 4 parcels, also including the Heflin house, Heflin property, updates the parcel lines consistent with the assessor's map. One on 215 North Baldwin Avenue, there is a documented update to the land use from residential medium to residential high per General Plan Amendment 1302. There are noted changes to various unique parcels as discussed during the City Council's meeting of the General Plan Land Use Map updates on December 9th, 2014. And finally, there are very minor updates to the British Home Specific Plan to include Lot 16 onto that specific plan. During our discussions, we talked about 1935 Stonehouse Road, particularly parcel 19 on that. That's the largest of the 4 parcels. We agreed to demonstrate a line of division which clearly distinguishes that it is a tentative division of both the land uses and zoning, or the northern portion is going to be designated in land use for natural open space and have a zone as open space, and the southern portion to be designated in hillside for both zone and land use. And then there was a vacant parcel adjacent to Mount Wilson Trail Path. The update to the land use and zoning was to be hillside, given its characteristic as a steep sloping piece of land. Next, we talked about the Richardson's House and Lizzie's Trail Inn parcel. We agreed to update the land use to municipal and the zone to civic and city park because it is city owned and there are museums on the property. And finally, to 150, 166, and 182 South Baldwin, rather than have them be, as I recall, it was R115, we made a modification to that to just be R1 with the 7,500 square foot lot size minimum with a residential entrepreneur overlay. So talking about residential entrepreneur overlay, this is going to be more in-depth discussed in the next public hearing, but this will effectively preserve the development requirements and uses of those underlying zones while providing the same uses as the residential professional zone currently permits. The area covered by the overlay will accurately reflect the 2015 general plan land use map as amended and noted following the city council review in 2014. And just as a note that this general plan amendment that we're discussing, and this is a hearing for that we're doing right now, this would not be effective until an ordinance is adopted by city council and becomes effective. So the next few slides are going to be what is currently the land use map, what is the proposed land use map, and the same thing goes for the zoning, zoning map. Instead of going quadrant by quadrant, because we kind of went over this already, I will be opening it up for public comment if anyone has any questions, and we can dive into quadrant by quadrant if we have more questions or would like to discuss on that. So in the before here, we have what's currently the land use map as per the general plan. And this is going to be the change. So first you'll notice that it's going to be all new colors. That's just to further, visualize residential low from residential medium, where on here, it's really difficult to differentiate that. This just helps with visualization. But you'll also notice that there are changes to certain parcels that we had discussed in our previous discussions. Again, if you would like to discuss quadrant by quadrant, I can go over that. And in zoning, it's the same situation here. We have what our zoning map looks like today and what the zoning map would look like consistent with our updates to that land use map. Now for findings and general plan amendments, we find that the Planning Commission may recommend approval of a general plan amendment and zone change whenever the public interest convenience is necessary, and that it is necessary to comply with state law and provides public interest and convenience by resolving inconsistencies so as to eliminate any misinterpretations. The request for a general plan amendment and zone change is consistent with the goals and objectives of the general plan, and that development standards and identified uses become consistent with the 2015 general plan land use map amended by this application. Tonight, the Planning Commission may approve Resolution 2109, which recommends approval of general plan amendment and zone change applications to the City Council. They may approve this resolution with modifications. They may continue consideration of this resolution, or they may deny Resolution 2109, citing findings that cannot be made. It is recommended that the Planning Commission approve Resolution 2109, which recommends approval of the general plan amendment and zone change to the City Council. And that concludes this presentation. Again, I do have each quadrant by quadrant here, so we can go over that if you would like. But that will conclude, so I will open it up to Planning Commission if they would like to discuss or have questions of staff.
I have a question, Joshua. Have you received in the office any inquiries or asked for information from staff by people whose property is going to be affected by this?
Yes, we've received quite a few questions. They've received postcards and they don't really know what's going on. So we do explain what's going on, and they just kind of ask what it means. And normally in a typical circumstance, it comes down to someone who owns one of the pieces of land on Sierra Madre Boulevard, which is being changed from a residential professional zone to an R3 with the residential entrepreneur overlay, which we tell them in effect it doesn't really change a lot, just kind of brings into consistency with the land use.
Yeah, one of my concerns is because we're in the Zoom age that people whose property is affected don't have as easy a time to come in and find out about what's happening that's going to impact their property. And I want to make sure, I'm assuming that they come to you directly, and I just want to know what is the consensus of the concerns.
As Associate Planner Wolf pointed out, people do have the opportunity. They have called, emailed, and they do have the opportunity to come into the office as well.
Interestingly enough, this is one of the events that no one has asked me a single question about it. So whatever you're doing a great job, or people are unaware.
Well, we did notice all the affected property owners directly with a courtesy notice that was published in the paper for this public hearing, posted online on our website. And so we try to reach out through social media as well.
Well, I commend staff because, first of all, it's an arduous task, and you must have done a very good job on responding to the citizens because, like I said, no one stopped me and asked me a single question about it, which I was like, huh. Good job.
Thank you.
And the public will have the opportunity to weigh in again as public hearing before the City Council. So at this time, are there any questions from the commission? Further questions?
So I guess then this is still a public comment issue, correct, Vince? So we should.
We can open it up for public comment, yes.
Yeah, let's go ahead and open it up for public comment. See if anybody wishes to, who hasn't talked to Bob, wishes to talk to us now. We'll give you 3 minutes to. So we're down to about 30 seconds. I guess the next thing, I guess we're going to bring it back to the rest of us. If anybody, we can go ahead and bring the discussion back to the members of the Planning Commission while we're waiting. If anything happens in the last 15 seconds, let us know. Since I wasn't at the last meeting, I have one question. There's a parcel up in Stonehouse that was quite large and sold to somebody through tax liens. I couldn't see from the map, but it looks like it's still up in the Stonehouse region, but the land use is still open space. Is that correct? Do you know what I'm referring to, Josh?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks, Vince. Okie doke. So time's up for any public comment. So bringing it back to the commission. I'm not sure what you guys have hashed this out. I wasn't at the last meeting. So you guys want anything else you want to discuss, or does someone want to make a motion, recommendation?
I'll lead off. Again, I want to thank staff. I think this is a tremendous presentation. This is, you know, a can of worms trying to organize all this stuff. And this is an amazingly well thought through and organized presentation. And it's really helpful and makes it easy to understand what's going on. And so thanks to staff for that. I am a little bit, not concerned, but just it feels like we typically get more comments from the public on this, something that Bob was going into. So I'm glad to hear that people have been reaching out to staff to discuss it. We did have 3 meetings for this, so it's not hidden. It's been very well discussed. I have talked to some people in town about it, no specific property owners, but just people generally wanting to know what's going on. We explain that we're just sort of updating and making things more consistent, so it's not any great change. It has nothing to do with the monastery. Sometimes people ask about that. So, you know, I think that the specifics we've discussed already, and I agree with all the findings that we've gotten to and the consensus on each parcel. I think the layout is good. One sort of presentation recommendation I would make is that where we talk about land use designation or land use map, I think it would be, and you can see this like on page 19 or page 24 or page 37 of the staff packet. We say, in all those cases, we say general plan land use map or general plan land use designation, and that'll help keep it straight in people's minds between zoning and the general plan. I think that would be helpful, because sometimes if you just see the land use map, you might slip into thinking it's zoning, and then we've got to deal with the zoning versus the general plan. So everywhere where it's general plan, if we put general plan or GP as opposed to the zoning, I think that will help keep it straight. But otherwise, I think it's great, and I can easily make all the findings, and I support the approvals.
Bob?
That's an excellent suggestion, John, about the general plan prefix.
Bob?
I commend staff on the hard work. This has got to be something that would drive you crazy, because you have to go, you know, property by property, back and forth, and how did it get this way and what's impacted. They've done a great job. I'm glad to hear that the public has been in touch with staff and the office to resolve questions and concerns, because, you know, they can't meet with us, they can't see us, so they have had an opportunity to find out what's going on. The one thing that I would really appreciate, that's happened in the past, is that when this is done, each commissioner gets a laminated copy of each map, so that we can have it as a reference on the dais when we are looking at other kinds of projects. You know, that's very helpful for a reference. You know, I think staff has done a good job. The public has been alerted, and it's nice to know that our documentation is now caught up with all the changes, and it has been refreshed to the point where it's really accurate and we can rely on it. So good job, and I can support this.
Terrific. Yeah, I was with most of the meetings, and I'm glad that we are able to finally clean up some of the incongruities, having been on the commission a long time, like, yeah, John and Bob. It's interesting when we had a couple properties that had some zoning and land use mismatches, and that was one of the things we had to resolve. So going forward, I hope that'll help us with development. Do I have a motion?
I'm happy to make motion, and unless Peggy wants to say anything more.
Oh, I'm sorry,
No,
Peggy.
I,
Sorry, John.
I want to thank the staff too, because it's an excellent presentation.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
then I will move approval of resolution 2109, recommending general plan amendment 2101 and zone change 2101 to the city council.
Second it?
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. So that moves us on to the next item, the zoning changes for the, which is kind of the overlay for the residential entrepreneurial zone, item number 2. Do we have another short presentation?
We have a short presentation by Joshua Wolf, yes.
Thank you.
Good evening again, commissioners. Tonight, I'm presenting the report on Municipal Code Text Amendment 2103 to incorporate the residential entrepreneur overlay. I do not have a PowerPoint presentation for this one, but I can share some of the previous hearing slides from the previous hearing to provide context and for the function and effective area of the overlay. So I want to go over for public hearing purposes, why is this necessary? The residential professional zone codified by chapter 17.32 of the municipal code permits, among other uses, any use permitted in the R3 zone, subject to the limitations set forth therein. There is also a degree of inconsistency between the land use designation and zoning designation of several properties, causing interpretation conflicts. For example, multiple properties on Baldwin Avenue are designated in land use for residential low density while being located within a residential entrepreneur overlay. Those properties are designated in zoning for high and medium density development. Any proposed development or use on the property would result in a conflict of either land use or zoning because there are two pieces of information which conflict with each other. Tonight's prior hearing is the first step in resolving these inconsistencies and making changes to the land use and zoning designation of multiple properties. This co-text amendment is the second step to achieve full consistency with the Sierra Madre's general plan. So what is a residential entrepreneur overlay? Sierra Madre's general plan defines an overlay as a land use designation on the land use diagram or a zoning designation on the zoning map that modifies the basic underlying designation in some specific manner. The general plan further states that the objective of the residential entrepreneur overlay is to provide opportunities for small entrepreneur businesses, service and professional offices in addition to residential uses near the downtown area where transit opportunities exist and where a mix of uses already exists. The residential entrepreneur overlay proposed by this code text amendment will closely follow the current residential professional zone and address issues causing inconsistency by removing language that permits residential high density development so that preservation of existing housing patterns may be promoted. The intent of the code text amendment is to follow the policy guidance and implementation measures provided by the general plan, those being policies L27.1, L27.3, L29.1, and IM-39. So staff recommends, staff has presented 2 resolutions for the commission to decide upon tonight. It is recommended that the Planning Commission approve Resolution 21-11, which recommends approval of an ordinance amending Chapter 17.32 to be renamed Residential Entrepreneur Overlay, amended according to Exhibit A in your staff packet. This resolution would closely follow the guidance provided by the General Plan Implementation Measure 39. And the alternatives for the commission tonight is to is Resolution 21-10, which is based on a discussion from the May 20th Planning Commission meeting, which recommends approval of an ordinance that adds a new chapter titled Residential Entrepreneur Overlay and repeals Chapter 1732 titled the Residential Professional Zone. The Commission may also approve either of these resolutions with modifications or may continue consideration of this code text amendment. And that concludes my presentation.
Very good. Any questions for staff?
Yeah, I have a question on the two different options. I just want to make sure I understand the distinction of the resolution 2110 and 2111. One is just amending the current residential professional zone to be a residential entrepreneur overlay, and the other is making a new one. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have some comments on the text of the zone, but those aren't questions, so we can get into that when we get into deliberations after we take public comment.
Sure. Yeah, if no more questions, then we'll open this up to public comment. If anybody wants to ask us some questions or make a comment about this item, please call in now. You have 3 minutes.
Vice Chair Pevsner,
Yes, go ahead.
this is Councilmember Parker. So just, is there and maybe this is a question to staff, is there a map of where the overlay zone is? I know we've discussed it before, but I didn't see it in the packet of where the zone is.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yes, we do have a map. It's on our prior hearings meeting packet, and you'll see it on the land use map, the general plan land use map, as well as the zone map. It's represented with hatches, and it spans east and west on Sierra Madre Boulevard, as well as portions of South Baldwin.
Thank you.
And I'd be happy to put that up on the slide and share it for the public if they want to see that.
Why don't we go ahead and do that?
That might be
Yeah.
helpful.
Have it handy. Go ahead.
Do you want me to wait until this timer runs out?
No, go put it. Well, no, put it up now because we're less than a minute and we can sort of be looking at it. And if someone's there, we can always take it down.
So on the west side of Sierra Madre, you'll see this represented in crosshatches. So generally properties that face Sierra Madre Boulevard are going to have this overlay. And the point of this is to be able to see the underlying zone here. So you can see by this demonstration that the underlying zone to all of these properties with the overlay is residential high, medium and high density RH. And some of these over here on Windsor Lane, south of Montecito Avenue, they'll have an underlying zone of, or I'm sorry, underlying land use of RL. Same thing with these ones on South Baldwin. And then on east side Sierra Madre, let me get out of that. It's the same situation, but it kind of terminates at 220 East Sierra Madre. I think that's 220 East Sierra Madre Boulevard.
Which used to be a law office. Yeah.
And we have several properties which already kind of demonstrate what this intended overlay does. I don't remember the exact
dentist office right there where you're pointing.
Yeah, right here. There's a dentist office, and it would appear as a single-family residence up until you go right inside the door, and there's a lobby with what looks like a regular dentist office. The same thing. Oops, sorry about this. Same thing goes for one of these properties just west of the library.
Yeah, they're set back from the street, and there's a dentist office down at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's another dentist to the east as well. And there was an office on Sierra Madre Boulevard and Sierra Madre Place, I think it was called, that used to be an office, but it got converted back just to a house. So some of these go in and out.
Great. So I trust nobody's waiting in the wings. If not, we can bring it back to the commission for discussion, or we can continue what we're talking about.
Do not have any callers for public comment.
Great, thank you, Christian. So bringing it back to the commission, anybody from last meeting to this meeting or what Josh went over, have anything else to say or just want to make some comments about it?
I've
Go
got,
ahead.
I've
Go
got a
ahead.
question. I'm trying to define the difference between 2110 and 2111. It looks like the difference is 2110 provides a section that explains that we're repealing the residential professional zone, while the other resolution, 2111, doesn't have that statement in it. Is that correct? Otherwise they're like identical.
Yeah, I think it's just a procedural difference. And really, because we're processing this at the same time as the map changes, I don't think we need to do the repealing business that we talked about in 2110. I agree with staff that we can just do resolution 2111. We only needed that repealing thing if we process this first before we change the map, because then there would have been some properties that were zoned residential professional, which wouldn't have existed. So now we're going to change it all at the same time. So it's a lot easier and cleaner to just do resolution 2111.
I'm in favor of that, yes.
Yeah, okay, good.
And then I have a couple of proposed revisions to the text of the code for chapter 1732. I don't know if I sent those to staff earlier. I don't know if you can put them up.
We can put those up on screen.
Okay.
I can go ahead and do that right now. Okay, is everyone able to see that okay?
Yeah, can you make the red line show up? Okay. I think most of this stuff is sort of cleanup or just, I think, making it more streamlined. There's one substantive change that I want to talk about, and I think I'm in favor of, but mostly I just want to raise it so we have a discussion. So the change in the first paragraph is just to make clear that this is an overlay and all the uses that are underlying the residential uses are all allowed. And then Also, I break the uses versus the signs down separately because you don't need a thorough review for the signs. Those go into the sign chapter. And then in item number 7, I just wanted to, the whole thing we did with the commercial code change is where we sort of tried to make a little bit more general. I tried to make a general comment there, and I actually have a further revision to that based on Joshua's read of the planning of the general plan, which I think we can improve. And that's where it says similar uses or other uses. Deleting the word use, second term where it says uses there, and using the terminology from objective L29 of the plan of the general plan amendment, I'm sorry, that says small entrepreneurial businesses or service or professional offices. And that way, new kind of offices and things that we don't even know about yet can go in, and be approved to this. And then finally, under the signs, I deleted number 3 because that's really a sign thing that has to do with apartment buildings. And so that's covered under the R3 code. And remember, before this was an overlay, this covered everything in the R3. So that's, I don't think we need that. That's about, you've got rentals on multiple dwellings, right? So that comes out. So all that stuff I think is sort of clean up. I hope people think that's not controversial. But to me, the substantive question is whether we want to stick with the CUP requirement that has always been discussed, or if we want to switch it to a minor CUP. And you can see that I put in that intro line there, uses allowed with approval of a minor, and I put minor in brackets. So I think we should discuss, whether we think a full CUP is really necessary on this, which is, as we know, sort of a big hurdle. Also keep in mind that most of these, if not all of these uses, are allowed already in residential zone as a home office. So the real distinction is not whether you could do this, it's whether you can have employees or people come. So, I guess a dentist would be pretty hard to run out of your house, but an accountant or an attorney or an engineer, an architect, those all could easily be run out of a house as just a home business. So those are my proposed things, and I think especially the question of whether we go minor CUP or CUP is something we should noodle on a little bit.
Commissioner Hutt, could you repeat that part that you wanted me to add to number 7?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted there. It's the same language from objective L27 in the general plan, and it says small entrepreneurial businesses or service or professional offices.
I kind of like all these changes. I'm not sure what the implications of a minor versus a regular CUP are. I especially like the changes to have the language consistent with the general plan and not repeating something like the signage that's already someplace else.
Yeah, I'm okay with all these changes. I think they add clarity for both staff and the citizens. Yeah, the pluses and minuses of the minor, because there are some things on that list that will affect neighborhood parking and things like that. So how that gets decided is still something I need to think about here. If you, think the key word is small businesses.
Yeah, I agree.
So what is
I-
the definition of small though? I mean, is it one?
Well, small as fits in a house. It's I think the other thing to keep in mind is this only talks about uses, right? So all of the development standards are based on the underlying zoning. So if you're in R1, it has to look like a single family house. If you're in R3, it has to look like a multifamily. You can't build, an office building because that's just not going to look the same. So I think that to a certain extent, some of this stuff is going to be just regulated by size and the market not wanting to jam people in. And I think the other part is that's what the CUP or the minor CUP is for, is to make sure that doesn't become a problem. And this has been granted with a CUP, not a minor CUP, but this has been in our code for ages. I'm not sure how long, but certainly since even before, I think the 96 general plan update. So it's been around for a long time.
Yeah, I guess if you use the logic that it's a single family home and, how many rooms can there be? And so how much, in and out will there be? Yeah, I think that I still think that the focus on the word is small. And so I guess I could live with minor, but I think it does need to have somebody review it at some, so that there is some decision made and thought about the exact location and the impact on the small community around it. And minors get noticed, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so that the surrounding citizens will have an opportunity to weigh in, and that's my concern.
If the citizens have a chance to weigh in, I guess minor would work for me too. The neighboring citizens.
We can't add something that if you want to open an architectural business, you have to serve on the planning commission.
Any further discussion?
Anyone want to make a motion?
Yeah, I can make a motion, but Bill, are you good on the minor, or do you want to go full CUP? I think I'm sort of, I could go either way really, but
Yeah, I like the least, I like the least bureaucratic, the easiest path. And if minor gets it, then I'm fine with that.
okay.
Minor does account for notification to the surrounding residents, which is what I want to make sure happens.
Yeah, there's a notice and then the staff decides, and then there's if people are aggrieved and think the staff doesn't decide correctly, there's an appeal.
Right.
Unfortunately, the appeal costs money. And maybe that's something, the city council might want to think about really if that appeal fee is appropriate. Because I think if we could push more stuff down to staff level, it could be more efficient. But if we don't have an effective escape valve for that, then it means that we want to bring more stuff back up to the commission level. So, but that's, I think, a bigger discussion.
Right.
Well, it sounds like we have consensus, so I will move approval of Planning Commission Resolution 2111, recommending municipal code text amendment 2103 to the City Council with the noted amendments.
I'll second.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. So now we'll move on to the discussion item of the Youth Commissioner appointment.
So staff has a very brief, a brief discussion to introduce this item.
Sure.
Basically, what occurred was at the June 8th City Council meeting, they had an agenda item to establish procedures for the appointment to city commissions and boards. And then it broadened into a discussion regarding the appointment of youth commissioners to each of the boards. Specific to this topic, which we're going to be addressing tonight, the City Council views this as an opportunity to educate students about local government. And the concept basically is to open a sixth position to a youth commissioner. And that would be between the ages of 13 and 18 years of age, with or without Sierra Madre residency. The City Council directed staff to obtain feedback from our various commissions and boards, which include the Planning Commission, Community Services Commission, Senior Community Commission, Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Commission, and the Library Board of Trustees. And this feedback will be forwarded to Community Services staff with a recommendation to City Council. I would like to point out that the Planning Commission is the only body on that list that considers and approves quasi-judicial land use decisions, addressing, in many cases, very complex topics. And also the Planning Commission is the only board and commission that meets twice per month. So there's a level of commitment that would be expected. And both these issues should be taken into consideration with your decision. So as indicated in your agenda report, the alternatives for consideration this evening is there are three alternatives, really four. One is the commission does not have to take on a youth commissioner. The body can decide not to move forward with that. If you do choose to elect a youth commissioner, which is a sixth person on the commission, you can do so with or without voting rights. So either the youth commissioner can vote like everyone else or does not have a vote. And the additional alternative would be an alternate that the youth commissioner would only be seen as an alternate commissioner without voting rights unless there is, we don't have a quorum, or they would be voting as representing the fifth absentee commissioner. So those are some of the options that we could discuss tonight, and I will open it up for commission discussion.
Well, as somebody who has a license by the state to teach adolescents and young people of this age, I can tell you that it's going to be very unfair to put them in a position, a 15-year-old sophomore at a high school, to put them in a position where they have to make judgments and decisions about people's property and big dollar items in a quasi-judicial manner. If they want to come and observe, if they want to come and ask questions, knock yourself out. I'm happy to see that. But, we deal with some rather complex issues that have grave impact on people's lives and our community. And, while the youth has points of view that we should, certainly take into consideration, I don't think that they should be put in a position where their opinion has a impact on the real property value of citizens. I think this is the one commission where we should be very careful about going down that path. I think for some of the commissions, that's fine. They can come and present their concerns, and some of their concerns and issues may be relevant. But in terms of making decisions, whether they have voting rights, I do not think that that's at all appropriate. And I don't think they should be seen as alternates of anything. I think that it takes over a year to figure out how to do this job, and a lot of people have a hard time learning it, and people with, you know, serious maturity, or what we would hope would be serious maturity. And I don't think it's fair to put a high school kid in that position.
Vice Chair Pevsner?
You know, I wouldn't mind having.
Vice Chair Pevsner.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's okay. I wouldn't mind letting somebody have an opportunity to sit on the commission, and, you know, probably without voting rights. I think it's only, even if, only because if somebody was missing, just so we had an odd man for a 3-2 vote or something like that. Certainly they, with 6 commissioners, that vote, I think, is rife with disaster. But I think it would be a good educational experience for a kid to be able to sit on there. And, you know, I just don't know if I wouldn't allow him any voting rights, I think, just because I think there are a lot of complex issues. I mean, we could always reconsider it, but if someone wants that kind of experience, I think it's helpful. I mean, I can just speak personally from 12, 14, how many years ago it was when I sat on this thing. It was a big learning curve just on procedure and just to grasp the gravity of some of the things that you're deciding, especially when some of the information is sort of mind-numbingly boring, you know, to even pay attention to what you're doing. But I think it's a good exercise for kids that maybe want to be, you know, civically minded, or at least they can see what they're in for. Those are my thoughts. I just don't. I don't think I'd give them a vote on the council, on the commission, though.
I think Robert Parkhurst, Councilman Parkhurst, was going to say something.
I was hoping to jump in at the beginning to give you guys.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. It's not a problem. So I think you guys have hit some of the key points that I have thought about as well from the council perspective. You're absolutely right. This is extremely technical, and it requires a significant amount of time. As Director Gonzalez says, you know, it's 2 meetings a month versus 1. One thing for you to consider in this is that you get to develop the criteria for what you want on this. And so you could set a criteria that would, you know, allow you to look at whether the person really was serious about taking this on as a learning opportunity. You know, I think that the point that the director made about the judicial nature of this is a very serious one. But, you know, there is this opportunity to really have civic engagement from the youth level. And so I think that's the thing to consider in doing this. And then the final thing is just a clarification. Director Gonzalez, I understood that it was from 13 to 19 is what I thought I saw at one point. Is it 13 to, it's through the end of their senior years, I think is what they were trying to capture in the language. So I just wanted to make sure that was, not that it makes a huge difference, but you get a little bit more maturity kind of as you get into adulthood.
This report was prepared by community services staff. So I thought it was 19 as well, but this is what was provided. So I'm not sure if actually which one is correct.
The staff report provided to the city council at the last city council meeting said 19. So it's probably just the scrivener's error.
I've got a question. If you have a college student on who's actually studying architecture or city planning, it's kind of like an intern kind of sort of thing. They serve like a year. Is that legally not okay because it's not like a youth?
They would be full commissioners. I mean, if they are not in at the age of 18, in fact, they could be full commissioners. This was contemplated to be a separate program for students, but if someone's 18, they qualify to be a full commissioner.
Okay, so are there any local high schools that teach planning or architecture or any relative subject that we could draw people from? Does anyone know?
I would think that, yeah, well, I know that every high school has to teach civics. That's a requirement. I doubt you get into architecture or planning at high school level. It seems college level. So I guess I still have sort of some conceptual questions about how this works. Is the youth commissioner, are they appointed for 4 years or 1 year or 2 year, or is that still up in the air?
That's to be determined by council. That council hasn't made a determination about that yet.
And then I guess going back to the quasi judicial decisions, is it legal for us to have a 13-year-old vote on that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I looked into it and there is actually no age requirement or residency requirement to serve on a commission. You could have a 13-year-old from San Marino serve on the planning commission. There is no age or residency requirement, interestingly enough. It's whoever the city council appoints.
Okay. I just, that may be the case. I just find it, you gotta wonder, especially if it were a tie vote, that the 13-year-old from San Marino votes on, that we're not gonna get sued because, you know, if you're an applicant, you come up with creative reasons why you don't like getting turned down, especially if the votes are turned down. I don't know, it just, I mean, maybe I'm being too much of a lawyer worrying about stuff if none of us think it makes sense to have a voting commissioner. But having a youth commissioner, I think for legislative actions, for stuff talking about policies under the general plan and you know, how we can make our zoning more future-proof, I think is a really useful idea. The idea of a youth commissioner voting on a quasi-judicial matter just strikes the fear of God into me. And I don't think that's a good idea. One other question is, how does the Brown Act apply to the youth commissioner? Because I think if you did have a youth commissioner, one of the best benefits would be able to like take that person as an intern and talk to them offline about, hey, this is how it works. This is blah, blah, blah. But if you're going to be violating the Brown Act all the time, you're not going to be able to do that. And you're going to miss that big educational opportunity.
If the youth commissioner has all the rights of a commissioner, then they would be counted toward quorum. If they serve only in an advisory function, then they wouldn't be counted toward quorum. If they serve in an advisory function, but then become a full member in someone's absence, that youth commissioners would only count toward the quorum or would come under the Brown Act when there's an absence of a commissioner.
Okay, I've got a scenario. I really like the idea of a youth commissioner and the perspective they could bring to the discussion. I am absolutely not in favor of them voting on legislature or housing projects or whatever. That's comes with a lot of responsibility, and that wouldn't be fair to anybody. But let's say, so we have a youth commissioner that doesn't have any commissioner power, and they aren't affected by the Brown Act, but then they go talk to every commissioner, and then they start telling the different commissioners what they've heard from other commissioners. What?
That would be a violation of the Brown Act, and that'd be a violation of the Brown Act if anyone did it. If Director Gonzalez did it, that would be a violation of the Brown Act, even though he doesn't have any voting power ever on the commission.
Well, that would be their first lesson to learn.
The difference is we have faith in Commissioner Victor's experience not to do that, right? Vincent knows what he's doing, and the concern is that you get a youth commissioner who's trying to learn and goes and talks to all the other commissioners, and you could. So I think if we did do it, the Brown Act training that we all do, they should do that Brown Act training whether they can vote or not. And I still vote no on the voting, but they should definitely do that Brown Act training.
One of the conditions we might want to put onto it is to have one of the commissioners just mentor the youth So it's just a one-on-one dialogue with the youth. So we're not getting a lot of broadcasting.
And if I could provide a little more background, other cities have youth commissions, which is a commission that consists entirely of students in the community. Some cities have youth commissioners on existing commissions, which is what we're contemplating today. But in no city that I see, and when we were researching this with our community services staff, in no city did we find an example where there was a youth commissioner serving on the planning commission. It doesn't mean we can't do it. I'm just saying we would be the first, probably in California.
And the Sierra Madre Community Services Department has had off and on youth commissioners on their commission for about 15 years, is what was indicated.
This is a bad idea from the get-go for the Planning Commission. I mean, why are we here? We're here to provide input and look after the city's development and integrity based on our experience inside the city and our trusting relationship with the citizens. We get to hear from the citizens about what they want to see in our city, and the decisions we make, everyone has to live with for the next 75 years. So it implies that we own a certain level of maturity and understanding about what it is we're working on. Now, I regularly assist Eagle Scouts with projects in town, and I can tell you, having worked with a bunch of 17-year-olds, their sense of maturity and their sense of understanding is into what our city can look like in 55 years is not there. Now, if Councilman Garcia wants to put a voting 13-year-old on the city council, that's fine with me. And I think we should wait and watch how he plays that out and then decide. But I don't think that it's right for the Planning Commission, for the interest of the city and the interest of the student, to be put in that position. I don't think we're doing the citizens right, and I don't think we're doing the child right. And if they want to come and they want to ask questions, if they want to come and look at what we do and ask about what we do, cool, and I'll mentor them. But I do not think that they should have any role to play in the decision-making process unless we see that the city council wants to mentor us as to exactly how that's done. And I don't think they have the guts to do it.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Because there's one thing in here that I understand differently, and that is, I can't remember if it was Director Gonzalez or Attorney Gargosian said that it was the city council's decision to put someone. My understanding from the city council meeting is that it was the commission's decision to have the youth commissioner, that they got to choose and that it wasn't the city. Can you clarify that?
I believe at the last council meeting, the direction was from the council to go back and ask the individual commissions whether or not they would like a youth commissioner on their commission. I believe that was the direction. And Councilman Parker, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or Director Gonzalez if you know better.
What you stated is correct. We were told to introduce this topic to our respective commissions, get their feedback, and report that feedback to community services staff, who will then present that information to council.
Okay, so Bob, you really don't think this is a good idea, is what I'm getting.
I think for the Planning Commission, it's a dumb idea.
You would, it seems like there might be some value to the youth, and maybe the commissioners to let them participate in the discussion, which isn't necessarily the decision making, but it would take a lot of extra time at our meetings. And we were just commenting earlier, maybe for the meeting, how smoothly things run here. And that's a value that I hold very high, is having a smooth and even planning commission meeting. I do like to support the youth, but maybe maybe this isn't the best venue.
So you as an architect regularly bring projects in front of other planning commissions, correct?
Theoretically, no, I have a part-time practice, but yeah.
So are you okay with a 14-year-old? I'm okay with them asking questions, but are you okay with them making a decision about your project?
No, I said that right up front. I don't want them making decisions, but participating in the discussion, they would certainly bring a different point of view, but it might just add more chaos than constructive energy anywhere. So,
I don't think it would do the city. I don't think it would do the city of Sierra Madre any benefit.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it would. I mean, the kid may learn a lot, but I'm not sure that we're here. Our purpose. I don't think that the role of the planning commission is to educate kids.
okay,
I think we have a more serious role.
yes. And I actually have some other ideas that how youth could be integrated into the city in a completely different way without involving the planning commission, but that's another discussion for another venue.
Well, I think that, you know, one of the things we talked about is sort of a mentoring program. And, you know, I think it would be fine to have sort of a shadow commission, or as many, you know, if we could find 5 or hopefully someday 7, you know, teens that would want to sort of follow a commissioner or understand, and they could sit in the front row and hear, and they could provide commentary, you know, at the hearings. Because we have public hearings, anyone can provide commentary, right? So I mean, and then you could have a situation where each commissioner could mentor one person, one teen. I think that would be great, and that person, you know, could have a commitment for a year to follow the planning commission and understand that they might learn quite a bit. But and I maybe could be convinced about legislative actions, about the ability, but to me, it's not just an issue of voting, it's participating on a quasi-judicial. Because if you have a conflict, you don't sit and participate and talk and then just not vote. You got to get out of the meeting, right? And I just think having a youth commissioner involved in a quasi-judicial matter at all, other than their rights as a citizen to public comment, is not the way to go. I do think it would be good to try to figure out ways that we can get young people involved, and maybe there's a mentoring program. Maybe, you know, we could have things where they could especially comment on legislative actions. I think it would have been great to have, you know, the people involved more in the general plan update. But yeah, I just the idea of somebody, you know, potentially 13 years old participating in a quasi-judicial matter, I don't see that.
I have a question for Councilman Parkhurst. Is the council considering having youth members on their process?
Commissioner Gauss, that had not been brought up. It's a really good question. And so we've not had that discussion.
And I can say that wouldn't be lawful, because under state law, the commissioner needs to be the council member needs to be both a resident of the city and a registered, has to be a voting age, and so they would have to be 18. They couldn't be. There's no such requirement for commissioners, but there is a requirement like that for council members.
So shall we, it's not necessarily a vote, but in terms of a consensus or opinion, so far what I'm hearing is a no for Bob. Peggy, I believe your final comment was somewhat of a no.
That's right. Maybe a mentor situation one-on-one, but that's about it.
And the same for John. No, but possibly as mentor, they could participate sitting in the front row, providing comment and deliberation during the public comment period, maybe expanded. And Bill, it sounded like that you were thinking it was a good idea.
Yeah, I think I don't know about the age limit. It'd be nice to limit maybe to little older kids, maybe even 16 to 18. And certainly not have any voting rights, but I'm not sure how else other than giving them an opportunity to take it seriously than being involved. But so that's a sort of a yes for me and under those parameters.
I would like to say that if it was a mentoring situation, I would almost prefer to have the youth sit next to me at the dais, so that they get the whole feel of it, even though they're not necessarily participating in the discussion, but they could, pass notes to me or something like that, a mentor. So they get, it's a completely different situation, the front row versus sitting up in the commission seats. So
if a youth commissioner were to be added in an advisory capacity, meaning if they don't have a vote, they would be up on the dais with the rest of the commissioners because they're commissioners. So that's a distinction, really, is a voting a youth commissioner that has the ability to vote in different contexts, maybe, or one that doesn't have a vote and is only serving in an advisory capacity.
yeah, I would prefer them not to vote and maybe even not to discuss during the meeting, but be able to sit up there and get the sense of it.
Could we have them be an advisory member just for legislative actions and not for quasi-judicial? Because I think even sitting up there and, there's the whole like reactions and I don't know. I just don't think we should go there on quasi-judicial, but I've got sympathy for the legislative. I just don't know if we could make somebody a half commissioner that way.
And I don't know that you would want to for the same concern you have, because for example, a development agreement, which is coming before you soon, is a legislative action. It's not a quasi-judicial action, but it feels quasi-judicial because it's a development agreement with a specific developer on a specific project. So if you were to divide the function up like that way, I guess the question is, would you feel comfortable having that youth commissioner vote on a development agreement?
No.
No.
I would be very happy to hear teenage input on general plan amendments and what we should do with zoning. Yeah, maybe we could have people who are, interns that shadow, and then if we have subcommittees, they could be on the subcommittees. But no, I don't think it would be right to have a teenager voting on a development agreement. And I just think that that's not fair to the teen, and it's not fair to the applicant.
Yep, I agree. I think there's actually better places in town to incorporate the youth, unless, there's a very, very, very interested youth interested in planning issues, in which case they can talk to a council member and maybe work out a shadow arrangement or something. But to make anything official, I'm not a fan of.
So Commissioner Dallas, it's an interesting point. So if a really motivated youth comes forward and says, look, you have youth commissioners on all the other commissions, but not here, I really want to get involved in that, then you may be open to having them come and shadow and have I'm trying to think of the right way to have the appropriate engaged role. You know, it's like you want them to the line with legislative and judicial is a very important one. But you know, what keeps them is sitting them at the dais keep them engaged, or is it does that they sit there once or twice a night, I'm not doing anything, and they leave? That's the thing I'm trying to think through.
Yeah, well, that's why I would not want to make anything official. I'd want to do it on a case-per-case basis, depending on the judgment of the engagement of the individual we're talking to. And so it's come in all flavors. So.
Yep. Do you have enough feedback from us?
I believe so. I will capture this and forward the comments, the variations to staff. Inclusion and an overall report from all the boards and commissions to City Council.
Okay. Thank you. I guess we'll move on to, let's see, well, I guess, is this a, do we always give another opportunity for somebody to talk about, to bring comments? I hate to have another 3 minutes of silence. Didn't bring my harmonica, but are we supposed to do another offer to the public to bring up something not on the agenda, or can we just go to planning commission reports? I forget. I have planning commission reports on the agenda, so unless we don't have to, let's just move on.
Usually we do offer public comment.
Okay, one more time. Anybody?
If
Go ahead, John.
discussion item, we have to have public.
I'm sorry? Okay. One last time for public comment on something not on our agenda. Okay, close enough. We'll move on to any planning commission reports. Anybody have anything? Anybody gonna run the 5K, the 4th of July 5K?
You have to be registered. And it's soon. The date is, I mean, you have to be registered in the next couple of days.
Okay, good. I think I know the head of the committee. Maybe we can give him a reprieve. Give more people an opportunity to show up. I want to see the country getting out and exercising again, eh? Nobody else has anything? We'll move on to planning, community and preservation staff reports.
So our next meeting is scheduled for July 1st. And at that meeting, we do have commission reorganization. We will be selecting a new chair and vice chair at the beginning of that meeting. We also do have a design review permit scheduled as a public hearing, and possible discussion item regarding the ADU ordinance update. That concludes my report.
Great. All right, unless anybody has anything else, we will adjourn to July 1st.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.